Wow. Welcome to the Corey story, Mike Smith. This is
How are you, my
amazing.
friend? Haven't seen you in a long time.
I know it's been quite a while. You've always been truly an inspiration to me. Basically, like when I was a jockey, I remember when I was learning, you'd already probably gone into the Hall of Fame. I was watching you on Azeri on in the Breeders' Cup, and I was just like, wow, this guy's amazing. Mind you, you
Thank
were on an amazing horse as well at that time too.
Certainly helps a whole lot.
So, to give you a bit of an idea of what I'm doing here with the Corey story, I want to interview athletes, and based on through the careers, like so many have done well, and so many have made lots of money, and so many have gone through so much money. So, I'm trying to help enlighten athletes and jockeys alike, and maybe even entrepreneurs. Just basically, like this money's great, but you got to do something with it to make it sustain, acquire assets instead of like going nuts on liabilities, right? And so I'm hoping you can give us a bit of insight on that. And but what I'll do first is for the people who don't know who Mike Smith is, this guy is unbelievable. For the sport of horse racing, he's definitely the poster boy. He's won 5,700 races, more than 5,700. Am I right?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
And which is unfathomable to me because I didn't even ride that many races. So it's just and on top of that, how many he's won so many big races. He's won the Kentucky Derby twice, and he's also won the Triple Crown, which to give context is would be like winning the Stanley Cup in my opinion. He's uh, he's definitely been there. He's won awards just because he's been an amazing person in the horse racing industry. He's so humble. He's just an unbelievable person. He helped me out when I was riding and gave me lots of advice. He's never too cool to talk to anyone. Um, and on top of that, he's just yeah. That's about it. I guess if you were to compare you to someone in this other sports industry, you'd probably be like the Sidney Crosby of horse racing. That's how I'd say, like someone who's well respected,
Well, I
but someone who's
appreciate it.
done extremely well and is very humble at the same time.
Well,
In any case, thank you so much for being here.
thank you, man. I appreciate thanks for having me on. You made my day, buddy.
So to get us started, um, can you explain to everybody? I kind of understand, but your point of view with your experience being around the world riding, like, can you explain to people how jockeys get paid?
Well, we make basically we make 10% of what the winning horse gets, which the winning horse would get 60%. I would say it pays down to places down to fifth, some places down to sixth, some places all the way down to last. But whatever the winning horse makes is what you would make. You'd make 10% off of what the winning horse makes. So if it was 100,000, you would probably make $6,000. But that's before you pay out the people that work for you. So that's before you pay your valet out, which makes anywhere up from 3 to 5%, and then of course your agent, which makes 25%, and then at the end of the year, the government comes looking for you.
Exactly. Yes. And $100,000, that's a big race. Like
Yeah, I mean,
that's not an everyday race.
and it well, yeah, it's nowadays it's gotten to where it can be, but no, it's not something you would win every day.
Right. Could you also go into, I'm trying to paint a picture here of the like jockey's insurance, right? I know what the insurance is like in Canada. It's not the greatest, right? Could you go
No,
into that?
yeah, it's not the greatest. I mean, if we're a member of the guild, which we have a jockeys guild here in the United States that I'm a member of, and it's a good idea to be a member of. But I mean, it's not a great insurance that you get, and getting any kind of insurance, for a rider at the risk is, that's involved in your career is very expensive. To get disability right now is just it's outrageous. I mean, you basically spend half your check just on your disability, just trying to get insurance. So insurance is very tough in our sport, especially now. They're getting it down to an age limit where past, I think it's 32 or 34, they don't even cover you hardly. So of course I'm out of that
Wow.
deal. It's just gotten kind of crazy on insurance wise. So if you are part of any kind of organ, I know in Canada it's a bit different. You guys have your organization there, and you'll get on track. So if things happen to you on track, you're pretty much taken care of. But off track, that's where you get in trouble.
Well, yes, in Canada, it's when I was a jockey like 8, 9 years ago. How it was the what I tell people is a career-ending injury. They hand you $50,000,
Pretty much it.
and I heard an owner say to me once, he was like, "Well, what's wrong with $50,000 a year?" And I was like, "No,
No, it's not in a
that's
year.
once. That's once." So if you take someone who's been had an average career and they're making 60, 70, $80,000 a year, and they're living to that income, now you break your back, and you have a career.
Yeah.
Speaking of breaking your back, haven't you broken your back?
Yes, I have. Yeah, in
Right, and
1998, I was out a year. If I didn't have that disability insurance, I would have been in a whole lot of trouble. So it
and
worked.
that's the other thing is I've talked to jockeys in Canada. I didn't get it myself when I rode. Maybe I should have, maybe I shouldn't. But you can get extra insurance. But the feedback on it is the amount of money you pay in, and for when something actually happens, they look for every out not to pay you,
Yeah,
right? So the money invested isn't really doesn't really make up for what it is, right?
fortunate for me, mine did pay me. If it wouldn't have, Corey, I would have been. It wouldn't have been good. You
And
know,
and that was so
we're
you did
not.
break your back
Yeah,
to give it
I
a
shattered
short
T12
backstory.
and L3 in a spill upstate New York in Saratoga in 1998, and I was out just about a whole year. So I was in a, as you well know, we're not, we don't, we only get paid when we ride. So if you're not riding, you ain't making a dime. So having that disability certainly helped me a whole lot of the time. Where I'm at
And that's
now
what
and where I was then, it's a different story on what like I said, now it's got here in the States, it's gotten so expensive, and they put it at an age where you're basically just, unless you pay that, you're basically out. I'm fortunate that I've, back in, of course, of my career, the things that I have and what I invested in, they're pretty much taking care of themselves, and so it wouldn't hurt me as much to not have disability, but if I was, if it was a different place in my career, I would certainly want to have it.
exactly, and that's kind of what I'm getting at, and that's what I'm sort of getting to. But let's jump back a bit in your career. About 20 years was the beginning of your career. Is that about right?
20, no, a lot longer than that. Thanks for saying, but
But when
yeah,
I read up and you started riding when you were 11. I didn't realize this till I did my backstory research. I've followed you forever, but I was like, is that true? 11?
riding match races about that age isn't really that uncommon where I'm from in match racing, especially around other countries in Mexico and stuff like that. Them kids, they start very very young, and I happened to start very young. I was my family was kind of into that, and I've been riding since I could walk. So yeah, I started 11, 12, 13. I was riding match races, and then, of course then I started professionally once I turned 16. But I used to ride quarter horses. At Yeah, I would say I think 11, 12 was my first match race that I rode.
So did you make money on those races or was it just for clout?
Uh, you would make money. Of course, it's different. Back then they would only give you, I think, $10 to ride a race,
Oh,
maybe 20.
wow.
Yeah, that was about it. But then as you got smart, you learn how to negotiate and get a little more out of them.
So when you started riding at 16, I know not there's so people don't know there's different levels of tracks and each track has a different sort of purse structure. Some are good, some are a lot cheaper. I remember the first purse I rode for was $1,780, right? Which I thought I was riding weekends. I thought it was killing it. Your first races, do you remember your first big wow check? Like I know I remember mine at Woodbine, and it was like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, once I started around New Mexico early on. So if you categorize the racetracks from an A, B, and C, maybe even a D track being the bottom, A being the best. I probably started out at a D to C racetrack. So I mean, I would have been pretty much the same thing as you, where you know purses that you would win were 1,200, 1,300. I remember I won the Derby in El Paso, Texas back then when I was very young. I think the purse was 3,500 at the time. It's now $1 million race. Goes to show you how it's climbed up.
That's
But
not
yeah,
inflation though, right?
yeah, what's that?
That's not inflation though, is it?
No, it's crazy how just some racetracks have done well, and some, of course, haven't, and some have folded. But I think, I guess, once I got to New York in the '80s, late '80s, is when I probably got my first wild check, where I was like, wow, you can make this much a week. It's pretty incredible. Again, I was doing extremely well at the time.
Right. And it's it I've spoke about this with a couple people that ride. And when you're in the midst of that, what I've been talking to people when I'm saying in a talk with Mike Smith, the one thing I want to say is like when we all start as jockeys, we all think we're gonna have that Mike Smith career, right? But that doesn't always pan out that way, right? And but in the moment we just think that. And in my case, I was thinking, yes, I want to invest my money. Yes, I want to save. I want to do this, but I had never had money, and I want to do it. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And in my case, tomorrow never really came, right? So what I'm getting at, and what I want to get into is, at what point have you invested your money?
Oh yeah.
And at what point, like, what have you invested your money into, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I've always look. I've got a high school education, so I wasn't. I knew that investing money or in playing the stock market or whatever it was, I had no knowledge about. So I had good people around me, though, which was fortunate for me, that told me, you hire the right people. So I had a good CPA, someone who did my taxes. I hired at the time, was a guy out of Chicago. His name was John Lupke. He's still alive today, and he's still a very prominent CPA. He's really, really good, and he's the one that led me in a lot of the right directions as far as who to get, big, good companies that could manage my money, and to put it in a portfolio, into a pie where you invest in stocks and properties and a little bit of everything. Some you diverse, and some you're very aggressive with, that you could kind of take a shot with, and a lot of it you put back. But again, that's hiring the right people. So I was fortunate that I had the right people around me, that the people that have already been in the game long enough. I had really good mentors, and Pat Day, and some of these guys who'd already done it all. And even then, I still went through a whole lot more. I should have a lot more than I have now.
And that's what
I really would have
I,
done
I
it right, believe me. But I was blessed that I did a lot of things right. So I did put money away, and I hired the right people, with a big company now that handles my money, and then we do some things. Me and my wife. My wife loves to get properties, and either flip them or rental properties that we have. Just good, solid stuff that's going to make you some money, and that you put it away in some, instead of just spending on everything. Which I've done a little bit of both. I've there was times in my life where I spent way too much. My wardrobe would cost more back in the day than I make right now, to be honest with you. And I don't have none of that to show for them. Again, I'm not saying don't ever do nothing, or don't splurge on things, but you got to put money away for stuff like that. Now I'm smart enough to where if I know we want to do something, I put some money on the side to do it. Or I have money on the side. I'm fortunate to have it on the side to do it. Back then I didn't really have it, and I just run through it.
do you have it? So at what point so your story is very relatable, which I love. That, like, we all want to enjoy life, right? And we all have our things. It seems like yours is maybe clothes, probably going out, right?
Going out and
Now,
eating clothes was my thing. I never was a big. I never overspent too. I never lived beyond my means. I wasn't one of those guys that wanted the biggest house on the block at the time. In our careers, you well know, Corey. Especially in the United States, we move around a lot. So I just getting a nice apartment was fine with me, and I liked a nice car, but I didn't need to have the Ferrari or the Porsche or anything like that. I just wanted a nice SUV that could get me from place to place. So I wasn't a big guy that lived beyond my means, and that certainly helped. When you don't come from money, and all of a sudden you start making it, man, you start wanting to spend it on things that yeah,
Exactly, and that's
you
my
know what
point
I'm talking about.
exactly. And I don't think it's a thing to be really ashamed of, because
No, it's
it's a
just that.
natural feeling, right? You see
Sure.
everybody around you enjoying their life and enjoying their money. You're like, why can't I? I remember sitting in the jocks room, and there was a guy doing not as good as me, and he got something. I'm like, well, why can't I get that too? And it's a horrible way of thinking,
Yeah.
right? It's like, if he can get that, I can get that.
Yep.
Um, but it's such a relatable story. And at what point was there something that happened that made you click and say, "Whoa, I really got to stop and do something"? Or did like Pat Day kind of smack you in the face and say, "Wake up, kid"?
Getting hurt, really bad the first time, and being out as long as I was, you realize that it could all end, and just 1 minute everything's, you're on top of the world in our sport, and the next minute, man, it's over. I mean, it really is. It's over that fast. I mean, as fast as you can blink your eyes, man, it could be over, and that really woke me up. Realizing just because the check might have said 30,000 on it that week, you don't have $30,000 in the bank off that one check. By the time the government takes what it's going to take out of it, and you pay everybody out of it, that 30 dwindles down to about probably less than 15. And then by the time you've lived for that week, it that $30,000 check, which you thought was a big check, is really about five to $6,000 maybe.
No, I totally agree. And until, like, it's funny, people don't realize, and they think, how could this person be broke? How could this person not have money? And it's like, you don't. It's honestly, there is a great documentary for ESPN 30 for 30. It's called Broke, and that kind of spells it out. Like, the bigger you do, the more things, like family wants you to take care of them, and end up with all these expenses of things you wanted to do, but you're not tracking it. And I think that's another big thing, is like how jockeys, like, they never had financial education. Most of them didn't. Most of them didn't come from money, so they don't know what to do with it. And my greatest, other than my own research, my greatest advice given to me was, "Oh, you got to buy a house," which is okay. It's not a horrible idea, but at the same time, there's way better things out there than that. And what brought me to all of this is I learned about, there was a player from the Detroit Lions, and there was an article written about him. It's kind of what inspired me to everything. And what he had done is he lived very, not frugal, but he didn't have a brand new car. His teammates made fun of him. He'd come to practice with it. They'd make fun of him because he didn't spend his money crazy like they did. Fast forward about 5 years, and his investments, his assets, were making as much as his salary. And it was like, in our career, there's moments in our career, like, we don't have salaries as jockeys, correct?
Well, I mean, yeah, you only get paid if you work. It's not like the NBA or a hockey team where these guys have already signed a contract and they're guaranteed that money. We're not guaranteed anything.
Right. And what I try and tell people, and it only comes from experience, is a jockey's career can end for 10 reasons that they can't even control. They could be the best athlete, they could be the smartest athlete, but we aren't. Something I notice is we aren't really in control of our career. The owners and the trainers are kind of in control of how well we do.
Sure, I mean the media. Eh,
Oh yeah, exactly, yeah. Like,
every
they'll come up with things that, like,
I know guys that have just as much talent as I do, and haven't had half the career that I've had, because of certain circumstances or reasons, or their opinions about you, or as you well know, man, it's a tough game, man.
exactly. And I've also said, like, I've won because of popularity, and I've done poorly because of popularity. And it sucks when the other guy's popular and you aren't,
Yeah,
right?
yep, you're
Uh,
exactly right.
what was your favorite investment? What is the one thing that you invested into that did the best, that you were most excited about?
Well, I mean, I've again, when you put your money in a company that manages your money, it's a lot of different things at a lot of different times. I mean, there's been times where when the stock market was great, my money just shot to the. I mean, so and then you look at the same, and I hadn't touched anything, and then you look, 5 months later, and all of a sudden, man, you're down. But it's the idea of having the right people, having your portfolio, your pie set the right way, where it's making you more money than just the money sitting in the bank itself. If you can make, 4% on your money, you're doing pretty good, right? You're doing all right, and if you can make more than that, wow, even better. And some investments will make you more than that, and some won't. Some you gotta ride the wave with it. It just depends. But early on in my career, I remember that like the first stock that I ever bought, I put some money into Natel, I think it was way back in the day, and I remember it just shot through the roof. I put like $50,000 in it, which was a lot of money, back then to put into a stock, and within a matter of months, it brought me back about 250. And
Wow.
I remember, taking it out and not leaving it in. I should have left it in too. There was a few others too. Walmart was one of them, and a few just stuff like that I remember making some money on, and thinking, wow, your money could actually make you that much money, and I didn't have to work for that. Which then you kind of get the idea of, all right, now I got to get the right people behind me to do this. This was just a one shot deal that someone told me about, and I did it. But once I started getting the right people behind me, to work for me, that actually have knowledge and know about it, then it got really good. And some people take it up for a hobby. I mean, you look at John Velasquez. That's what he wants to do when he retires. He wants to be a money manager. So a lot of you young writers, I mean, he's going to start a company once he retires here. I mean, he's on the back end of his career as well. Although he just won the Preakness the other day, but that's something he wants to do for a lot of young writers. He wants to help them manage their money, and teach them where to put it so that your money actually makes you money. The
Exactly,
idea
right?
is not is to put enough in there where you don't have to spend the principal, right? Where you can live off the income that your money makes. If you can
Exactly.
if you can get close to that, you're doing really well. And then look, if you're blessed enough to retire with your arms and your limbs, and you can walk, man, thank God, and you can always still do something. Whatever it is you want to do in the industry, or anywhere else for that matter, that makes you a little bit of an income, man. Now you're doing all right. You're not ever spending the principal, and you're just living off of what you were fortunate enough to put away.
Exactly. So to clarify, you're saying more or less acquire with your money, you want to acquire assets, and those assets will make you money, and you're spending the money that that asset makes, right? This
Yeah,
is what I've learned what very financially free people do is that's what they put their money into.
and look, and even
So
doing,
you want to buy the nice watch, you buy it with the money that the asset created.
yes, exactly. You're not reaching into the principal, to the initial amount of money. Once you start reaching into to the money that you put in there and having to pull that out, well, now you're going the wrong way. Now you're going into the red. And I still hyperventilate about it, man. I still worry about it. I mean, this is kind of who I am. I just, so, but it's a good thing. It keeps me grounded, and it makes me understand that money, it can go and it can come really quick, and just because it's coming at this moment doesn't mean it's going to continue coming. There's some young writers like you, Corey, who didn't have that long a career, but did well, and put it away and did something with it and have something to show for it. And there's so many of us that haven't, that didn't, that they thought it was going to keep coming, and 1 minute, 1 year, you have a good 2 3 years, and you think you're just on top of the world, and you got the game beat, and man, all of a sudden, man, you suck.
Exactly.
And you ain't no good anymore, man. And it just turns around, and you've done spent everything that you've made. And it's hard to make
Well,
that kind of money. The only thing that I've truly ever made money at, or I actually had it, where I said was through what I do. I've been blessed to have had a great career, and not bad at what I do. So if I try to do things off on my own here and there to make a quick buck, I didn't know enough about it. You gotta surround yourself around the right people.
That's a key.
Do the research and be careful with some of these private people handling your money. They got nothing to lose except to spend your money or to get it away from you somehow. You got to hire the right companies, that are very credible, and that's what you do. You hire the right people. Make sure you got a great CPA, someone who's really good, because taxes are important. You know, a great CPA can help. Man, listen, you're spending this. This is what you're making. He can help you out and put it into where you can actually see it. Because we keep thinking we're making. If people look in if you Google Mike Smith, it'll tell you that I've made a 300 and something $1 million in purses.
I
They
know
think they
that's
think that I made 300.
yeah. People say the same thing to me. I'm like, I didn't make that much.
Yeah, that's what your horses made, and you've
Yeah,
got a percentage out of that. And the percentage comes out of that. And our agents get 25%. The government takes 35. And I'll take that, but man, it dwindles way down. And again, we're also in a sport that if you're not winning, man, you really don't make money unless you're fortunate enough to win. That's where the money comes in. Third and fourth don't really get you anything.
nope. So you've gone into a little bit, but could you give what sort of advice would you give? Sorry, I want to jump back first and elaborate on something you said about getting the right people around you. And I think that's very important. And the key is when you're an active jockey, you don't really have a lot of time to think about these things. You got to concentrate on winning. When you're winning, you got to concentrate on keep on winning. So I think it's very important, like to have the right people around you, because you don't have the time to research on all this stuff and concentrate on this stuff. Correct?
Yeah, but at some point you got to take the time to do it. Otherwise, you won't. So if you do take that time to do it, and once you've got that kind of stuff in place, where I've already got a great CPA, I've got a good bookkeeper, I got a great money manager, people that are handling my money, and everything's in place, then I can really, really concentrate almost 100% on just riding, and not have to worry about a lot of that other stuff, because you got the right people working for you. And then again, at the end of the year, you have your CPA audit everyone who's working for you. You make sure and do those things so that you can put 100% into your career, because if you don't, at some point, then you're just never going to have anything.
Exactly. So, what sort of advice would you give to those newer riders that are doing well and they're starting? Like we said, we've gone over a couple things, but what sort of advice starting out would you give?
I was fortunate that I had some great mentors. I reached out to the older riders, the guys who I knew were doing the right thing. You know who's doing the right thing and who's not. You know who has what and who doesn't. When you're a young rider in there, and reach out to them. They're more than happy to help you, man. They'll tell you the mistakes they've made, and the ones that you're gonna make, and the ones that you are making, and they'll tell you what to do about it. They'll help you, at least point you in the right direction. I mean, you don't just know these things. I mean, I knew to get a great CPA right away, because I was starting to do well, and then I didn't know anything about taxes, and you got to get them done, and you can't just take your stuff and throw it on someone's desk at the local tax place down the street. I mean, you need to. I would reach out to the top jocks, guys who were doing well, guys who had something, who weren't just blowing through their money, they were doing the right thing to it. And you just start asking questions, and little by little, it just all leads to the next step that you need to take. Once you start getting money to put away and you start putting in the bank, you don't just put it in the bank. I mean, it's a good idea to put it in there, but I mean, it just sits there. It doesn't really make nothing. The bank's making money off of your money, and your money is just sitting there not making anything. So you gotta, again, hire the right company, and do your research there, because there's been a lot of guys who have hired independent companies, and man, next thing you know, they're missing $1 million. And because it's easy to do, so you gotta hire, you know, very companies that have been around a long time, and they're around for a reason. Because they do the right thing and they're really good at what they do. And once you do stuff like that, and you hire, I even hired a bookkeeper, so I didn't have to worry about my bills every day. They do it, but then make sure you're on top of that as well, and your CPA takes care of that at the end of every year. Everything is it's paper. It's a paper trail. You know, you can always find out if anybody's taking anything from you. So at the end of the year, you know, I have my CPA always audits my bookkeeper, and everything's always on the right track, and I can spend 100% of my time and energy just on riding.
Yeah, exactly. Are you a big reader?
No, I wish I was. And I admire some of these young guys who are there. There's some of these young guys who are so good. I mean, look at a young man named Joe Talamoa. I mean, you know, most magazines that us jocks had in the jocks room weren't ones that you you should be reading. You know, here's a guy that's reading Wall Street and the Money magazine and all these good things, and he's really into all that. Here's a young guy that's got investment properties. He's from New Orleans. You know, he put his money back into investment properties that low income people that rent them, and once you get the whole thing going, he's making some good money, and he's had a great career, but not a Hall of Fame career yet, and he's doing extremely well just because that's where he puts his time and money into. If you're a guy that likes to go to the clubs and spend your money every night, well, more than 99% of the time, you're probably going to wind up broke. So you got to find a happy medium for a little bit for everything. I'm not saying don't ever go out and have fun, but you got it all has its place, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But
So to elaborate and to go
surround
over,
yourself again around the right people. Put it away. And when you put it away, put some away to go have some fun with. Okay, I'm gonna, you know, at the end of the year, I want to go on a holiday, man. You got to put money away from that.
and
Can't
that's
just keep
important.
spending.
We gotta enjoy the money a little bit, right? Like you
Sure,
can't
yeah.
just be stressed out with riding the whole time and not enjoy yourself. That's not sort of what we're saying here.
Look, if you had a 20-year career, man, you did extremely well. At the end of that 20-year career, you're probably still pretty young because we start pretty young, right? So what are you gonna do? Did you put enough money away the rest of your life? I mean, you certainly got to. The good thing is if you had a 20 career and you started young and the reason you retired was because you wanted to and you've been able to walk away on your own, you want to have something to enjoy. You know, you want to be able to, and yet you're still young enough to do something else, as you have done. You know,
Exactly. And that's what like I kind of look at it, the money that we sort of make as jockeys and when we do very well, it's almost a gift. It's like this surprise gift, but people are spending it like they've arrived, right?
yep.
Which is, and
And I've done a
it to
little of that
me,
as well. We all have.
yeah, exactly. And
Right.
you know what? This has been awesome. I'm so thankful for your time, Mike. You're just an unbelievable person. So helpful, always full of information, so humble. I appreciate it, and hopefully soon we can talk again, man.
Anytime, man. I'm here, and I'm just happy to see you're doing well, man. When you reached out to me, it was good to see your name, and now good to see your face. I haven't seen you in a long time. I like that beard, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And you put on a few more weight, and you put on some pounds. I don't think I'd want to mess with you now, man.
Yeah, I never thought I'd make it to 140, but somehow I did.
Oh, that's perfect, man. Good for you.